Internet of Things makes our cars driverless, our homes connected, our cities smart, and factories run seamlessly. Artificial intelligence combined with IoT data is where the business value is created. Imagine yourself in the driverless world. I will teach you to pivot your career and innovate in your business using IoT, AI, and autonomous vehicles. Let's begin your journey with me today. Welcome to IoT Solutions World Congress 2018 Barcelona. This is part 3, Digitization of Connected Car, from the Fireside chat I did covering data and digitization. Hello everybody. I'm Sudha Jamthe. Hope you are joining us for this amazing Fireside chat we are going to have today about car data and digitization to get us to the future of transportation. I focus on Internet of Things and autonomous vehicles and research that space, do some advisory work, and teach courses on the business side of IoT and business sides of autonomous vehicle at Stanford Continuing Studies. And there are a bunch of Android Auto, the Apple platform for car. You chose to go with the mobile.
Yeah.
So what is your thinking? Do you see that mobile is going to be the interface to the car, or there's going to be a separate platform?
I think it will be a mixture, or it can be complementary. Before Joern and myself, we have talked about that. So I think in the case of SEAT, we have been one of the early adopters, or one of the first ones to introduce smartphone integration in the car. I think we have it available since late 2014, beginning 2015, not just Bluetooth connection, but I'm talking about, we call it full link. It's actually Android Auto and Apple CarPlay and Mirror Link, which has a lower usage rate nowadays. But when we talk with the guys from Apple or from Google, they actually tell us that the SEAT customer, in terms of percentage, is the one who is most using these type of functionalities, and therefore for us it's very important. It's mainly focused on entertainment, which is something our customers actually looking into. From next year onwards, we are going to also have our own OCU in the cars, and the vehicle will be connected by itself, and you will have more functionality, especially also interesting for the dealer network. So you're able to extract some of the data out of the car, or you're able to advise the customer that he has an issue with a, I don't know, brake pad, whatever, and you're able to guide him to the dealership. But I think it's a mixture. It's going to be an evolution for us. It was important at the beginning, smartphone integration, because there's another very important aspect, which is the business model behind vehicle connectivity. And for sure, again, there will be a difference between a Daimler, a SEAT customer, a Audi customer, a Porsche customer, or a VW customer. I remember when we started with the whole topic of digitization, if you look on how much it actually costs to integrate connectivity into a vehicle, it's not cheap, and at the end of the day the customer has to pay for these functionalities. And this from a SEAT customer perspective, I think they are not as used to pay for digital services or digital functions, because basically they have them for free. And I often have discussions when I present a certain project and maybe the business case is not as good as we expected, and then see our financial chief tells me, okay, how can that be? And then I always ask him, okay, how many smartphone apps you have on your smartphone? And he tells, I don't know, 20, 25. And I tell them, okay, how many of them are you actually paying for? Not thinking of that he's paying for data. And he tells me, yeah, I'm actually paying one, I'm paying for Spotify. So it's a little bit complicated, especially for the whole entertainment part that you're getting into the vehicle, that the customer is willing to pay a big amount of money in there. So it's something which I think we as the automotive sector have to find out how we are able to manage this in the best way.
Yeah, I think it's the answer is somewhere in between. So I think the smartphone integration has to be there, but also customers expect a seamless experience. And my personal feeling is once you leave this entertainment functionality, and we're moving now into the electric car area, into the autonomous car area, so now much more car specifics come into play into the services. A simple example is the Car2X functionality, where, for example, if you're driving on the Autobahn or on any highway and somebody is turning on the warning lights, then this information is sent back to the, if you have consented to the service, is sent back to the backend, and actually this information is sent to all of the other cars around in this area. And this is obviously something that you cannot integrate with a smartphone because it needs input from the car. You could, but it needs to get more specialized in this sense. But Fabian made a very good point, and that's about the price. So I mean, from all customer functionality, you always have to see what is the price that you can that the customer is willing to pay for this functionality, and usually this is not very high. That means that also that the whole development process and the maintenance process of the connected services has to become much lower.
Just complementary to what Joern was saying, I think he's fully right, and I think this is something which we have to completely change as well, because when Joern said it's not only to develop, it's also to maintain, and I think this is something new for us as the car guys as well, because in the past when you were developing a certain function or product within the car or a car itself, everything stopped with the SOP in the development process, and after that you actually started with the next generation of that project. And now it has changed because you have to maintain these functionalities in a certain car for the next 5 or 10 years, which is something where we have to change our mindset as well.
We are talking about business model, we are talking about monetization. What is mobility services in terms of experience for a customer?
We are always saying business model, and I think the business model term is what I explained before on the connectivity functions of the car is a little bit similar to the smart mobility or the mobility services itself. It's also not so easy to monetize. So for example, if I look on car sharing operations nowadays, if I look in Spanish cities, you normally need an electric vehicle in order to be operating a free floating car sharing service. And if I then look in terms of operation costs, how expensive this is. If I have to recharge a car, I need to get somebody of the car sharing company, get into the city, pick the car up, drive the car out to a charging point, charge the car for a couple of hours, and then bring it back. So between 3 or 4 hours, this vehicle is not operative. Also the car sharing or the ride sharing, even if I say maybe the figure sums up when I look on a BlaBla car where I drive 500 kilometers and the transaction is then a little bit easier, or the transaction amount is actually higher. It's something when we have to look into if you only have 30 kilometers and I don't know, you have only 2 euros or 3 euros, if the people are willing to pay for that. I think it's the willingness to pay for the customer we have to look into, because at the end of the day we are in there also obviously to make business.
We are going back to the monetization point. Are we going to use these mobility services, data in the car, to change the experience of what it means to be in a future car?
The experience has already changed a lot. So if I look at the connectivity functions that the vehicles nowadays have, and especially in the next 2 or 3 years, we will see like a huge leap forward in terms of what the vehicles actually will be able to do, and then you will see the first autonomous driving vehicles as well. What I like about digitalization and the experience we give to the customer in the car is that the automotive sector over the past years have actually opened itself a little bit, or actually some brands quite a lot. I remember in the past when there was a connectivity function or several or whatever service or function was available on the market by a third party, instead of talking to that third party and saying let's try to integrate that in our car, we normally developed our own solution with a much worse user experience, lower number of users on it. So, and that's why we from a SEAT perspective, we have seen a little bit, okay, what functionalities we would be able to offer from third parties which have a high acceptance. And we have, you have mentioned, we have integrated Alexa, we have we talked a lot of times or quite some time with Waze. I don't know if everybody knows what Waze is. Is well, actually the best rated navigation app. This is something interesting when we talk about embedded or not embedded functionalities. It happened to us with Waze when I walked to them and I told them, listen, let's develop an infotainment application together in order to have Waze embedded in our vehicles. And then actually the feedback was, listen, you know what? We are currently developing for Android Auto.
Yeah.
So we don't want to do a specific development for each of the automotive manufacturers you have on the market. So there are some things where you need actually smartphone integration, and you see nowadays you have it on Android Auto, you have it on Apple CarPlay, which is kind of funny because Waze was acquired by Google some time ago. So to have something from Google into the iOS environment or the iOS ecosystem is something funny to see. It's something the customers are actually profiting from. Then we have talked about the Alexa example. We have integrated Shazam in our vehicles, which is also a functionality which is kind of funny because one day I was driving to the office and I'm using Shazam quite a lot. And was a cool song on the radio. I said, okay, I have to Shazam that. So I was looking for the smartphone, was puzzling it out, then I was unlocking it and looking for the application, and then I was Shazamming the song, and then I thought, okay, actually it's quite dangerous to do a Shazam in the car. And then when I came to the office, I asked the team, I said, please check if there is a Shazam integration into vehicles. It actually turned out it was not. So we met with the Shazam team last year at the Mobile World Congress, and we explained them the story that we were looking into this, and they said, yeah, it's actually interesting because beyond 70% of Shazams are being done beyond 30 kilometers per hour. And normally you don't do a Shazam when you're sitting on a bicycle or in the bus, so we actually have worked to integrate them as well in the cars. And this is, I think, something nice. It doesn't have to always be through a smartphone because it actually carries some complications with it. Some of the things we have to look how we integrate them natively into the vehicle, and this is something that we are doing and where we try to change the experience how you are able to use our products.
So I think before we get to a place of future, there's going to be this place where there are going to be some apps integrated using the car platforms like Google and Apple and everything, and then there's going to be mobility platforms. So I think that brings us to the end of our session. This has been a fantastic, fun session. We could keep talking for a while, but I think I should wrap up. Thank you, Jan, and thank you, Fabian. Thank you, everybody.
That concludes this fireside chat. Subscribe to this channel for future videos about the business side of IoT and autonomous vehicles, or join the Driverless World School for online classes.